Everyone, welcome to Impact Over Image. I am so excited today to have a chat with a very good friend of mine, Counsel Mosiah Olvera. I know you may object when I say Counsel, but hey, we have to give the respect. You went through law school, you graduated, you are licensed, and now you are a full-fledged practicing immigration attorney. Congratulations, man. Yeah, I'm so happy that you could join us for this show.
Well,
And
you
it's
know,
such a
and
blessing.
appreciate the trust.
I trusted you to save the goals in college. You are a keeper, so I
Yeah,
trust you.
yeah. I remember that. Man, we made it all the way to the championship on that one,
We did.
and then
Yes, we did.
then I tore my meniscus for Simba for the
Yes,
team,
yes.
and then we lost. But oh well, good time.
You you put everything on the line, man, and we
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
yeah. But that was fun. I've torn my other meniscus since then, by the way, playing
Oh, you
soccer.
did?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I'm just getting old. That's what it is.
So you are always passionate about soccer, man.
Yeah,
You
dude.
know, it's a religion, man. Like our ethnicities, we soccer is everything, man.
Yeah, yeah. And then our holiday comes every 4 years with the World Cup for like a month and a half.
hmm
So that's
Well, I'm gonna
exciting.
give an introduction. I know, man. We can get too personal. It's been a minute since we've chatted as well. So to our viewers and listeners out there on Impact Over Image, I'm going to give an introduction, to this great man. His name is Mosiah Olvera. He's a very good friend of mine. When all of us we were doing our undergraduate work, meaning, when we were doing our bachelor's degrees, we went to the same university. He was doing political science, and I was doing business finance at the time. And the banter we had about soccer, we were also on the same college soccer team, and we were actually unbeatable. We actually made it all the way to the championship. So great times. But what Mosiah has done academically, he has a bachelor's degree in political science. And then after that, you went on to law school. He studied law. And then he went after law school. There are other extra requirements. The refiner's fire, you have to go through the bar. And he did that. He passed, the bar. And, he's a fully fledged practicing attorney, in a great state. I've tried to move him out of there. It's a great state for him. He likes the state that he's living at. With that said, I am so happy that we have him on, and I just want to learn from him as well some of the things that he can be able to share with us. And he's a family man, and he's the man of the community. He really likes, saving the people. Even as we go on, you know, we will get to learn why did he decide to do law. The T-shirt may give away, but I don't. It's more than that. I think it's more than that, man. So now, Mosiah, tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words. But I'm glad to have you on, my friend.
Uh, for the kind intro. Uh, so I am, like you said, Mosiah Olvera. I originally was born in Mexico City, Mexico. My parents immigrated to the United States when I was about two and a half. So I grew up in the United States from a young age. Uh, but I didn't find out something crazy about me was I grew up undocumented for 20 something years. So what I didn't know was that we didn't have any immigration status in the United States after our visas expired. I grew up until about I was 11 thinking I was like just like anyone else. And then that's when I found out that you're not really. Well, my parents sat me down and they told me, they asked me like, what do you need to live in the United States? And I was just like, well, like a house, a job. My parents like, yeah. Anything else? And just these little words came to my mind, like, social. And my parents like, yeah, you don't have one. And that was just like,
Wow.
wait, what? And then having to learn that, you're not gonna have a driver's license. You're not gonna have a normal job. You're not gonna get to go out and have a car when you're 16. Police officers stopping you is a scary experience. So that's kind of where my life changed at 11 to living a little bit in the shadows in the United States. But I always had a dream of being normal, like just being like everyone else, being able to have this idea that the American dream could come to me, that I could reach this goal. But there was always that huge cliff that I thought I would never be able to overcome. But thankfully, I was able to go to a university, Brigham Young University, Idaho. They took me in. They gave me opportunities. I was able to gain my education. While I was there, I was able to meet my wife. I was able to, thanks to her, I was able to begin that path towards citizenship. And I was blessed to be able to stay in this country. And what that enabled me to do is to go to law school, and be able to pursue a career in law. So, it's kind of been a journey coming from that 11-year-old perspective, the high school perspective. Man, like, my life, there's a limit to what I can do. It's changed. So, it's been a journey, and I'm really grateful for the many blessings, the many people that I've stood on shoulders of. I'm standing on shoulders of giants. They've helped me get here. I didn't do this all by myself, but I have help. I have people who knew things that were able to guide me and tell me what to do, and were willing to help. So that was really helpful.
No,
And that's
thank you
me.
so much. Thank you so much for that background. Um, with that said, would you say that you've always wanted to be a lawyer, or you feel like circumstances pushed you to take that path to become an attorney?
Uh, my son's here in the office with me. Sorry.
That's
So to
good.
answer your question about whether it's either I always knew or whether circumstances pushed me, I think it's a mixture of both. Uh, I have this teacher born to argue primarily because I love history. Like I love it. If there's a debate about something to be had, I'll
Mhm.
debate, whether I believe in it or not. But my my mother always told me like you're gonna be a lawyer because you always argue with me, always. So it just was kind of like something I was drawn to. But I didn't fully commit until I was on my mission. An example of an attorney, my mission president was an attorney. So that was kind of, I was like, well, that could be, I really like what he tells me about his career. And it's kind of like a little taste. So then when I was in college and going through my process that I went through to become a permanent resident and then a U.S. citizen, uh, eventually, I had friends who were going through the same process that I was, but there was like a distinction. There was something they thought that. So I'm just gonna explain to you this moment that happened that really convinced me to be an immigration attorney. So
Yes.
I was at work, and a buddy of mine was like, yeah, like we're just talking about having had to go through the process of immigration, and he was like, yeah, I have to renew my green card. And I was like, you just got here. You know, green cards don't expire with that fast. So it just seemed weird that he said he had to renew his green card. And
Yes.
him about it, and he's just like, yeah, like I got my green card for 2 years. For those that are not familiar with the immigration system here in the United States, when you marry a U.S. citizen, they put you kind of on probation when you get your green card through your U.S. citizen spouse. They give it to you for 2 years, and if you stay married, then they'll extend it to a 10-year card. Now you're a permanent resident forever. That doesn't change. But the card that proves it, um, they'll give it to you for 2 years if you're newlyweds, and then they'll extend it to you for the full 10 years once your marriage survives 2 years. Um, so when he said, "Hey, I only had it for 2 years," I was like, "Hey, that's what I had." And then he said I had to renew it, and I was like, "Oh no, 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 no! That is not the right way to go about it. If you renew it, you're gonna lose your residency card, and that probationary period, they can take it away if you don't do it correctly. If you don't renew it, you could lose your status." So
Mm.
we, I was able to explain to him, no, there's an entirely different other process where you have to prove that your marriage is still legit. And he was like, "Oh crap, I have to like do this in like 2 days. Like I got no, like my card expires in like a couple of days." I was like, "Dude, you have to like file." So I was able to help him. Maybe I'm exaggerating on the 2 days, but it was a really quick turnaround, and he was able to submit his stuff on time. And then, you know, it was I was able to help other people that were doing the same exact thing I was, and that just really filled me with a sense of purpose. Like I was just happy, walking away from their house after having talked to them about it. And I was like, man, like, I want this feeling. Like I really want this feeling again. Like this would be something amazing to be able to come home come home from having done this every day. So that's when I fully committed to being an immigration attorney. That was when I knew, like, no matter what, law school is the goal. That's what I got to do, and we went from there.
Now, take us through the process because, again, you do mention the idea of I knew this was the way. I'm sure there's a lot more between selecting and walking the path. Law school is not the walk in the park. Now, for people who are aspiring to be lawyers, making a difference in the lives of other people, representing other people, what did it take for you? What was that path? What does it take to be a lawyer, and what did you do?
So every state is generally similar, but states have different requirements. But for the most part, you need to go to undergrad. You need to have a bachelor's degree. It doesn't have to be in anything specific. It could be in music. It could be in art. It could be in construction management. It could be in anything. It doesn't have to do anything with law. But uh, if you are starting or you're in the beginning process of your bachelor's degree, some things that are useful is a lot of writing skills, a lot of reading skills, a lot of analytical thinking. So degrees that help you do that can help you achieve this goal. I don't know that I have a regret with my bachelor's degree. I don't. But if I knew now what I know now, having a degree, a bachelor's degree in anything, and still go to law school, if I could do that, I would have picked a different one that I could have more fun with, like history. I really love history. So, but then it would still get me those reading, analytical, and writing skills that I would need. So, someone that does art, perhaps you might want to try adding some skills or some classes that would help you with your writing and your reading and your analytical thinking, right? So, there's no like one size fits all. There's people that have different types of bachelor's degrees. But the first step is that get a bachelor's degree. Um, the next step is you have to take a test, either the LSAT or the GRE. I think a lot of schools are starting to accept those. Um, the LSAT is one of the most common ones because that was the one that was required and the only one that was accepted for a very long time. And that one does get into your more logical, analytical thinking. They don't test you on anything about the law. So if you're like, shoot, I got to study up on U.S. law to get into law school, no, the answer is no. You don't have to know a single thing about law to get into law school. It's helpful. I mean, it's going to help, but you don't have to go up and take a college class on, American law to do that. So the LSAT will test you on logic, reading, and writing. So how logical are you? How well can you write? And how well can you read? And then they'll give you a score off of that. Then you can apply to law school. A lot of things I did not know. One of the things I did not know was there's upper tier law schools that are really, really competitive. There's mid tier, and there's lower tier law schools that accept a wider degree of candidates. What I didn't know was that your LSAT is only one factor of your admission. So the higher the LSAT, yes, the better, right? Or the higher the GRE, the better. But it will be in combination with your GPA. Then it'll also be in combination with your personal statement that is part of the application process. They'll actually take that into account. So those are the things that, the three main things that I would be focused on in your application process. Knowing which school is a reach for you, which one you can comfortably get into, and which one you're basically going to get in no matter what, takes off the stress of the application process. So, for example, I applied to 5 schools in total because my top tier school, the one that was at reach, and then the one I was like, it was middle tier, which was my second choice. They accepted me, but the law school I was going for, which was a reach, they did not accept me. So, but since I knew my second choice law school, I wasn't stressed when I saw that they admitted me. I was like, I'm good. If I don't get my first choice, I got my second choice, and that's pretty dang good. So,
Right.
Having that ranking system, knowing about that, really helps you pick where you want to go. The other thing I would think about is where do you want to practice? So when you go to law school, you build a network of people. The people that are around the law school start out as your network. So unless you know someone back home already, or you're part of a family of attorneys, that's going to be the very first, that's going to almost be the nucleus of who you know as lawyers and where your first job opportunities are going to come up. So think of where you want to live because that makes it easier. Now, I wouldn't say that to force you to pick the law schools in that state. There's people that went to the law school I went to and then went to Texas. We're in Oklahoma, and they went to other places to work. I have friends in Oregon right now who, think about that, Oklahoma to Oregon.
Right.
So it's not the limiting thing, but it's useful, it's helpful to get started running. You don't have to do it that way though. The other thing to keep in mind is bar exam. So the bar exam, that's after law school. But you have to keep that in mind before you even go to law school, because each law school prepares you for the bar exam better or worse, right, than other schools. So the organization that regulates law schools is called the ABA. Generally, a school has accreditation from the ABA in order for you to be able to practice law. So that's the other thing. Don't go to like a school that just doesn't have accreditation because you never know if they're gonna get it by the time you graduate. They could, they couldn't. That's just something you have to risk. But generally, there's a ton of schools that already have it, so it's the field's great for picking. You'll be able to pick. But the ABA forces schools to report how well their students do on the bar exam, how well they get a job, how frequent people transfer out of the school, things like that. So those are also stats you want to look at. You don't want to go to a school that, hey, look, it was super cheap. They gave me a ton of scholarships, but their bar passing rate was horrible, right? Because if you don't pass the bar, you can't practice law.
Right.
So your student loans, if that's how you pay for law school, that's accruing interest the whole entire time. They become due after you graduate. And think about that. You can't work as a lawyer with a lawyer's salary. Those loans are going to come in knocking. Bills even, just things like that. So you want to go to a law school that will prepare you the best for the bar exam. And that's kind of the process of me picking a law school would be. Now, if you want to specialize in something, that might throw in another thing in the mix, right? So I wanted to do immigration, so I looked for a school that had an immigration clinic. So a school that would be able to provide me with practical experience in the field I wanted to go into. So a big complaint that many people who graduate from school is, man, this initial job that I'm looking for, I already need to have like 30 years of experience. It's kind of like going to a law school that gives you the experience in the field that you're looking for is a big head start. Because you might find out, oh, I hate this. I don't like this. This is not for me. I need to go to a different field in law. And you can do that. And it costs you almost nothing to do that. So, and it saves you time. So that's how I would look at picking a law school. I don't know if you wanted to move on to something else. I could talk about the law school experience or the bar exam, but
Absolutely. So here's another one for you. Someone coming from a disadvantaged background, someone who doesn't have the rest of the toolkit, or things that have been given to them to say, hey, you went to private school, you're coming from an affluent neighborhood, you have the library all set up for you. Everything, in other words, has been pinpointed for you to succeed. Let's say now we have someone who doesn't have any of those toolkits or tools in their toolbox, but all they have is a dream and the motivation for them to make a difference. What would you advise? I mean, what would you advise such a child or such a person who is trying to pursue this? They have this dream and they are passionate about it. They want to do this, but they don't have all of the tools available to them. Where should they begin to start to assemble their own toolkit?
So any journey, even not just lawyers, but like any career, any future, any person who's successful, there's a lot of challenges you gotta overcome. There's a lot of limitations that you have to overcome. There's things that you have to do with tools, but one of the very first things you have to overcome is self-doubt and fear. Because that's really, I would say, the big cliff at the beginning. Because if I were to talk to, 5 years ago, Mosiah, which would have been 2019. Actually, let's move it back a little bit. 6 years, 2018, Mosiah. I was so afraid of how am I going to get there? Like, that is an impossible reach. I have no way of knowing anything about how to do this. And that is the very first challenge I had to overcome. So what I know now that I wish I would have known back then, but it's time for me to learn, is you cannot doubt yourself for something you haven't failed at yet. Like you haven't failed. Like you haven't even begun. So you cannot fear something, the consequence that has not happened to you yet. You shouldn't. You're going to, but you shouldn't, because you have things that you can do. There's actionable things that you can start working towards. But if you're so scared of failure in the future, you're not even going to do those. So your journey's not even going to take off. So that's the first thing, is stop being afraid of failing in the future, because there's no point. It hasn't even happened yet. Don't worry about things that haven't happened yet. If you get denied from going to school, what if I fail in law school? What if I don't pass the bar? Well, none of those things have happened yet. So don't worry about them. You have to start with step one, and worry about step one, and not be worried about step 100. You should plan for step 100, but you shouldn't be worried about step 100.
Wow.
The other thing is, I would not be afraid to reach out to people who are in the field that you want to study. That's where I would start, because lawyers and professionals, they know how hard it is to get to where they've gotten, and they don't usually, generally, they don't want to impose that on someone else unnecessarily. If they can help someone know what they know now, they're gonna help. That's what I've found. People are really willing to help. So I would suggest start out there. Try to get to know people. Try to ask them about their careers. What do you do every day? Then you can start seeing, like, okay, I feel like I could like this. I feel like I could do this. Or I would like to do that. And then one more thing on doubt. Of course, you can't do what a lawyer does if you haven't become a lawyer yet. That's obvious. Like, you haven't gone to law school. You don't know the law. You don't know how to think like a lawyer yet. That's the point of going through the process, is to gain those skills. So if you're like, oh, I don't know how I could ever do that, well, of course you don't know, because you haven't been taught yet. You haven't learned how. So why would you be afraid of learning how to do those things? The law school is set up to teach you how to do these things and get the skills that you need. So when you graduate, you're not like, oh, I don't know how to do this. So if you start self-doubting yourself because you haven't actually even gone through the process yet of learning, you're kind of just making it worse for yourself, and you're delaying a future that could be very bright and very promising for you. So that would be where I would start to answer your question. Where you start is stop doubting, stop being afraid, and go talk to people and start asking questions of how you get going. And of course, bachelor's degree is where I would start heading. If you're not there yet, if you've got your bachelor's, I would go to study for the LSAT, study for the GRE, and start looking at law schools.
Thank you. I mean, I really love that. I think it's such a great point that you bring up, mentioning that there are some things we are afraid of that we haven't actually even done them yet. And that actually then becomes a block for you, to say, well, I'm afraid to do this, then I'm not going to do it. And then it becomes an impediment. I really love that thought that you brought up. Another one, I feel like for the most part, having the bigger why is more important when you are climbing a mountain, right? Because there will be at times you will reach places and low times where you say, wow, this is difficult. I cannot see the end of the line. This is so difficult. This assignment is beyond what, the scope or the knowledge that I already have. But if you actually have that self-belief and also knowing that it can be done, I have this dream, I need to get there, the perseverance really helps you actually to get to the mountain. Can you share with us some of those low moments when you're going through this journey that were like, wow, how did I even get here? But because of that belief that you have actually just earlier mentioned, helped you to overcome that those fears.
Yeah, so I could actually name you three moments. I feel like this is kind of normal for people. So the first one was when I graduated undergrad. I graduated with zero experience. My grades were better than they had ever been, but they weren't the highest. They weren't. I wasn't like the most spectacular student ever. I messed around my freshman year of college, and that really hurt my grade point average. Um, and I graduated with no experience in anything related to law. So for me to then oh yeah, and I didn't really know any lawyers except for the lawyers that did my case, right? And that was on
Mhm.
my only relationship with them. Uh, so for me to then turn around and be like, I'm gonna go to law school, and it's kind of like, oh my god, like that's a mountain. I don't know. Like I just got
Mhm.
done with this other mountain, and that mountain looked huge, and I just got down to the bottom of this, and now I'm looking up at this even bigger mountain. Like, oh, what do I do? So that was a very low moment, and I felt like I needed to take a break and not and like think about it, like save up some money and just kind of like enjoy my life before I started that journey. But in the end, I felt like I that was probably it was like that was just kind of like my mind. I just psyched myself out, and I waited. I'm in the end things work out for their good. So I don't view that as like a regret, but it was kind of like my low moment of doubt, my low moment of like I can't do this. Um, and the thing is I had to now start studying for the LSAT. So that's my second lowest moment. Once I was like, all right, I gotta do this. I started studying for the LSAT, but I just came from a mentality of I can't, to one of the most, one of the most challenging tests I've ever taken. Now I'm studying for it and I'm taking practice exams and I'm like getting super low scores. I'm like, oh my god, like I really never gonna go to law school.
Mhm.
So that was the second lowest point. I was like, wow, like this doesn't seem like it's gonna work. Um, but I had a great course, LSAC. I was able to use that for free, and I was going up in my point average if I just keep going, if I keep by keeping the study. And then I found a buddy that wanted to go to law school too, so we studied together. That was a big hell of a big boost because then I saw he had the same scores as I did, and I was like, hey, like I'm not. He's pretty smart. He's
Mhm.
pretty smart, and this is what he scored. And then I must be doing pretty good actually.
Wow.
So it was just helpful to then be able to know to have those tools and those resources like a course, like a friend. And that's how I was able to overcome those two challenges there. And that's when I felt uphill. And the application process then didn't feel like a down. It felt like I'm just progressing. So the third lowest moment I would say was studying for the bar because law school I thought was wonderful, fun. I loved learning. It was
Mhm.
scary at first. You thought you were gonna fail, but after watching a couple classes, most schools curve their grades. So generally, if you just you do the work, you're gonna pass. You know, um, and I really wasn't so much focused on grades at that point. I was more focused on I just want to pass, but I want to learn as much as I can from this class because it was interesting to me. So I need these skills. I want to learn them. So that's why law school was enjoyable. But the lowest was the bar, was when like this mindset of if you fail, you can't be a lawyer. And that was a poor mindset to have because then you go in thinking, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. What if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? shoot, I'm not doing good. I'm not doing good on these practice sessions for the bar. These questions are super hard. I don't know the answer. I don't know what to do. So there was another time period where I had to have the right tools. I had a great course for the bar exam. I had tools for, okay, what do you do when you don't know what to do? Having an answer to that question of, okay, if you don't know what to do, what do you do? Knowing what to do then really helped. Having tools and resources for that. And then having this mindset of, I'm going to do okay. Everything's going to work out in the end. Once I changed that mindset, bar study became more of, I'm going to study, I'm going to put in the work, I'm going to learn, I'm going to love learning. And that's when bar exams went like that. I still had doubts, I still had fears, but those were not, I didn't allow them to rise more than to the point where they controlled me. They were still there, but I used those tools to pass the bar exam. And it was a wonderful experience to learn that I had. Totally worth it in the end.
Absolutely. No, and congratulations again. I mean, I did mention that.
Yeah.
Now, why does some sections of society, this is more of like a qualitative question, and why do some sections of society think that, in the United States, we say lawyers are liars? Why do you feel that there's that
Yeah.
precedent somewhere out there?
So first, there's bad lawyers. Just like in any industry, right? There's bad doctors, there's bad real estate agents, there's bad builders, there's bad in every industry. And yes, lawyers, there's bad people that do things. And the thing with lawyers is we have power, we have knowledge. So when you have power and you have knowledge, it hurts people, right? So there are people that have hurt people as lawyers, and they have lied and they have defrauded. So we get bad reps from them, but it's also the style for us is I would do what the law says, but where the law does not say, you can't blame me for making this argument. So in my head, that makes sense, right? Laws are there to be followed, but where there is no law, you're there to make your argument. And even when there is a law, you're there to make an argument as to what the law means. And for, usual people, like people who are not lawyers, they don't think that way generally because their job doesn't require them to think that way. It's, all right, what am I allowed to do? What am I not? And that's it. And how do I do this successfully and not get in trouble? And that's it, right? There's nothing, I'm not going to be trying to find loopholes in anything. I'm just going to do my job as best as I can, live my life, and go home. So for them to see other people that are, their job is literally, well, is that really what it means? Like, what if we were to do this? Is that still, legal or lawful? To them, it looks like, oh, you're just trying to find a loophole. And that gives you a slimy feel from our industry. But that's what we're here for, is to tell you what the law means or tell you what it could mean and protect you or guide you and not help you not get in trouble. Or if you want to do if you have a goal that is bold, tell you, well, these are the arguments for it and these are the risks, and you're in charge of deciding whether you want to take those risks. And then I think the other side is the criminal side. In the United States, we believe in the right to representation. So if you're facing criminal charges, we believe that there is an imbalance of power between the state and a criminal defendant, because the state can do all sorts of things to you that you have no control over. And those are really coercive situations. But if you have someone that's able to intervene and tell you, no, that's not, you don't have to do that, or no, don't answer that question, or someone who will take the fight to the government and tell them you can't do that, then it balances out, not necessarily all the way, but it lowers the coerciveness, and it provides more balance to the judicial system. What that means, though, sometimes is even guilty people have that right, because we don't know who's guilty and who's not guilty until there is a decision.
Right.
So if we believe in treating everyone with a presumption of innocence, so that a lawyer is supposed to fight just as hard for the innocent person as for the guilty person. But sometimes we make our decisions before the facts come out all the way, and people are like, well, that man's a serial killer. How horrible of you to try to defend him. But the thing is you could be accused of serial killing too. And there you're going to want a lawyer who's going to fight for you because you may be innocent. So it's our way of balancing the coercive nature, but on the outside it looks like, oh, you're trying to help him get away with a horrible crime, when it's not about that. It's about protecting and defending your rights that guilty and innocent are both entitled to. So that's the other place where things look slimy. And then last, I would say, well, people just don't like getting, they go through some of the most hardest situations in their lives, and then they get the bill. And I mean, doctors are great. We feel really grateful for them when they help us feel better. But then we get the bill in the mail, and they're not our favorite person anymore, right? So I think that's a mixture of how we lawyers sometimes get this perception of liars, or they took advantage of me, or things like that.
Right.
So
No, I can see that. And I really love the way you broke it down, that in every section of society we have the good and the bad, so I do get that, in every element of society we have those bad apples, so to speak.
Actually, lawyers are some of the most regulated people that there are. I have a book here. Let me just tell you real quick. This is a book of just cases, of just examples of everything someone has done wrong and how rules have been created because a lawyer did something bad, right? So, or how to prevent things from happening from people doing bad things. The thing is, we're self-regulated, meaning the people who manage lawyers are other lawyers. And so some people criticize that. It's like, oh, you insulate yourself as a club and keep other people out from keeping you accountable. But the thing is that's not true. Though we regulate ourselves, we're still beholden to laws that the state and the federal government make. So we can get in, what we're saying is we get in trouble 3 times if we do something bad. We can get in trouble with the state, we can get in trouble with the feds, and then we'll get in trouble with the other lawyers as well. So it's just, even though people say that's a weak layer, well, that's just a whole nother layer that nobody else has to deal with.
Fantastic. If you are given a choice between asking good questions or answering great answers, which one would you pick and why?
I would say ask the greatest questions, because you learn a lot more information when you have really good questions. So, for example, I'll give an example that happened to me recently. So I'm with a client, and I've explained the law. I've explained what we can do and why I think, based on what they told me, why we can be successful in this goal that we have. In my personal opinion, I thought I explained it the way it should be, and I explained it well. I believe my clients understood and they were excited. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, right? Giving great explanations. But I asked an important question, and it changed everything, the whole path. But because I asked that question, I got that information to be able to change the path we're going. So yeah, I can give great explanations, but if I don't ask the right questions, which are great questions, right? Then I don't have the information I need to actually get my clients to where they need to go. So I would pick greater questions.
Fantastic. With that said as well, another one for you. As a fully fledged practicing lawyer, what are some of the tools or skills that you've gained that have helped you outside the courtroom as a result of you actually pursuing law?
So as a lawyer, one of the greatest skills I think a lawyer can have is understanding both sides of the argument. So one of the greatest skills I've walked away with law school with, I used to think, oh, that's a stupid argument, or that's a dumb argument, right? And it's kind of like, well, wait, if that's the prevailing argument against you, there must be something there. There must be a rock it's standing on, or there must be a principle it's standing on. So understanding, even though it may be wrong, completely wrong, I think walking away with an appreciation that you cannot dismiss someone else just because they disagree with you is one of the greatest skills. Thanks to law school, thanks to the experiences I've had there, I disagree with a lot of people wholeheartedly. Politically, there's some people I vehemently disagree with, but I have learned to understand why they are arguing what they are arguing, and it makes me respect them. And I don't lose the respect for people just because they made an argument that I find completely incorrect. It's like, okay, like they're just being wrong is not a big deal when it comes to respecting people. People can be wrong, and we can be completely best of friends.
You bring up such a great point. Why is that so lacking in society that you can disagree for the most part and still be cordial and still be friends? Because I feel like our society is very divisive based on whichever group you are on. Especially here in the United States, it's either you're on the left side or on the right side. And if you are from the left, you don't hang around, or even if you do, you don't actually view the guys that are on the right side as as people who also are just people who have chosen otherwise from you. And for me, I find that very disturbing, right? Because if all of us we thought the same way, then life would actually be, for the lack of a better word, it would be just plain and boring, so to speak. There has to be some sort of talking points. But I feel like sometimes people get charged so much that even reason goes out of the window, and even the social standpoint, social divides also begin to come in, and then it becomes very, very charged, and then people lose it, and then the commonality and unity actually is broken. But you mentioned, as lawyers, I do see that quite often, that you could have the most heated court case between the two of you. People could be watching the case, is like, wow, these are mortal enemies. And then after the case is done, everything is resolved. You go and have lunch together as if nothing happened. Do they train you in law school to act as such, or how is that even possible? How can people adopt some a little bit of those mindsets, so to speak, to be able to say, well, I disagree with this person. It didn't go out well to my favor. I didn't win the case, but he's still my friend. I'll still go to barbecue and, we'll go and hang out.
So that definitely is the culture that I think lawyers aspire to. We're all imperfect people, but I will say that as these generations, as we're getting younger generations, there is a shift even in our field, that you are the enemy if you are arguing something. And I mean, there are some pretty poor arguments that I've heard lawyers make. I've heard them say things that is kind of like, that's a very poor argument and in bad taste, right? But I think the willingness to allow that space to be there is growing shorter and shorter. And I think our industry is one of the last industries for it to hit, right? Because you have to have that space. We can't have lawyers be lawyers if it's only one argument that's correct to even make, So you kind of can't live or survive as an industry if that changes. But I think it's a choice. So I've had people tell me like, oh, like so and so is such a bad person. It's like, yes, that is what you believe, right? But and I disagree with the person, but I have to make a personal choice I have to make a personal choice that I will see beyond our disagreement, and I'm going to try to get to know this person. Be their friend, be willing to, go out to eat with them, just talk about stuff, and not take it as a character determination on where they stand on their politics. So, I think that's where it starts. Is that personal choice. And I've heard some pretty horrible things. Like I've heard some very poor arguments. I've heard some very bad suggestions on how to fix problems. But I've had to see past that, and I've gotten to know people's character and who they are. I come to find out that they're more receptive to my opinions and to my thoughts on their thoughts if they feel like they know me. And yeah, I've had people who are in positions of power who call me and ask me for advice, even though we're politically opposite. So the only reason they do that is because I know them. And even if they don't listen to my advice and they do whatever they want, it's kind of humbling and to know that people care about what you believe and that they're taking it into consideration even though they disagree with you completely. So it's that actual choice. It has to be a choice. If you don't make that choice, then it goes to pot.
Man, I really love that. That was really fantastic the way you explained it. I feel like also society it's also a mindset of being lazy. It's easier to judge than doing the work to actually figure out who this person really is. It's easier to say, this person is like this, blah, 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 even actually creating a false narrative or about that person, as opposed to say, let me get to know this person, let me do the work, let me find out who this person really is. I feel like the laziness is what actually causes that. People don't want to do the hard work to actually get to know the person. I really love that. To be able to learn from your lens and the idea that, even people that you may disagree with, they can actually look up to you as lawyers, as people that, can give them the advice that they need. And to be sincere with you, like the way I look at it, sometimes the people you do not agree with are the great consultants, if you ask for them, because they will give you some of the, the gaps that you may have to say,
Right.
hey, wait a minute. I think here you are looking at it from this angle, but this is how we are looking at it. And then you can learn from, from them as well. I really love that. Now, tell us a little bit about your, the practice that you are involved in, where you are working, and what are some of the services that you offer, so that to our viewers out there who may need the services, immigration services, so that they can use them?
Yeah. So we are a firm that focuses exclusively on immigration. Um, so what that means is we can help anybody with immigration matters, whether it's they're inside the United States or they want to come to the United States. There's very few things that we don't do that are more high end, like very, very, very specific business visas that are more like, big money kind of things that we might not do. And we more focus on family immigration, humanitarian immigration. That would be things like asylum. Uh, there's people in the United States who have been victims of crimes, and they have cooperated with law enforcement. They've reported the crime. They qualify for things like U visas. So if anybody ever has been in the United States and they were a victim of a serious crime and they're looking for a way of staying in the United States long term, you want to look into a U visa, and we do those all the time. There's other things like VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act, where we petition for people who have been abused by their permanent resident or U.S. citizen spouse or children. That also, if you're a parent of an abusive child, that can also work. There's trafficking victims. Generally, right now, a big topic right now is asylum. That asylum covers quite a bit: politics, religion. If you've been persecuted because of your politics, your religion, your ethnicity, your nationality, that can be reasons for seeking asylum in the United States, and we help you with that. There's other things that not necessarily count as politics or religion, but they can be tied to that. So if you've just been persecuted in general, there might be reason for you, but it's highly technical. So I would definitely seek the advice of an immigration attorney there. I focus on humanitarian immigration and also removal defense. So we also do a lot of that, where people are in the United States for whatever reason. Immigration says they gotta go, they gotta be returned to their home countries, but they have a right. They have the right to be heard by an immigration judge, and I go to court to fight for them and to defend them and explain to the court why they should stay. So that's what we do, and we also help people become citizens, which is the more joyous last step, last thing you have to do with immigration to never have to deal with them again. And we enjoy being a part of people's end of the journey there, and help them do that as well. So that's kind of our firm. We do a little bit of anything and everything immigration, except for very specific kind of stuff.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you for that. And what was the name of your firm?
So we're Erwin Law Office, so ERWIN Law Office, and we can actually take any case in the United States if it's with immigration. Immigration law is federal law, so if you are having trouble with USCIS, ICE, things like that, or you're wanting to do a case for immigration, if you're in New York, if you're in California, if you're in South Dakota, wherever, we can help you with it because it's federal law, and we work on that.
Man, that was great. And three things. Top books that you really enjoy reading, or that you have read, you feel like these books really are really important, and they've really
Right.
kind of just changed my perspective. Do you have any that you can share with our viewers and listeners out there?
Yes. So I'll be right back. So I can prepare this time.
Yes.
Uh, um, So now that you didn't catch me off guard this time, uh, this is one of the first books I've ever read that had to do with constitutional law. And it's the actual notes of the debate in the Federal Convention uh, as reported by James Madison. So James Madison was one of the delegates that went to the Constitutional Convention, where the United States government was basically written and debated. And that's actually, how our conversation came about respecting other people's opinions. So the way the U.S. government works isn't. There was a possibility it would have never been the way it is now, and great minds sat together and they debated for hours and for days, and they criticized each other, and seeing people do that really taught me, like, oh, like, even though it sounds crazy to argue that, there was value in fleshing out ideas and thinking about why something was wrong or something was right, and then come to where we're at now. So this was really eye-opening to see if how the government came to be. And then this one was John Adams. So John Adams was the second president of the United States. He was a delegate to the the Continental Congress when the United States was declaring independence from England or Great Britain. And he was a lawyer, a farmer and a lawyer. So he was a feisty fellow. One of the great lines from a movie that was made on his biography was he was a lawyer for these soldiers that were English soldiers who had fired into the crowd and the Boston Massacre, as we know it, and he was defending them. I mean, this is a guy that he ends up being a founding father of the United States, but right before the Revolutionary War, he's defending British soldiers. So one of the lines during the trial that the movie says is nothing but facts, evidence, and the law. And it just kind of like helped me realize that, like, high tension situations, you need to look at facts, you need to look at evidence, you need to look at the law. And just his attitude of being willing to represent people and even people he despised, that really helped me have kind of like an example of what a lawyer was. Is that doesn't mean that you're just trying to get people out of trouble with. You're making sure that their rights are respected and honored. So his story really helped. I really enjoyed it. My purpose on earth, and it's helped me have a perspective to endure trials more joyfully and know that all things work for good eventually. And no matter what happens in a trial, it will be over one day. So it helps me change my perspective from, man, this is never going to end, this is going to be the worst thing ever, to one day this will be over and it'll be okay when it's over, no matter what happens. And those are the 3 books. And you changed it on me this time. you said 3 instead of 1.
Yes, I did. And I'm so grateful for your time. And this has been really fantastic. And you actually being a bridge and being somebody that can assist other people who cannot be able to interpret the law for themselves or understand it, but you had to do the hard work so that other people don't have to go to school for 4 years and then go to the bar in order for them to be heard. But you are there, to be able to bridge the gap. I really appreciate you, and I really am very grateful for what you are doing, in the community and for everyone and anyone, because you're taking anyone that may be needing the services that your law firm offers. I am looking forward for us, I think, at some other time also to be able to, to have you on the show again, because I feel like there were a lot of things here that you brought out that we can actually discuss a little bit more again in depth. But for everyone out there, if you need those services, just remember, Erwin Law. and my friend Mosiah here. I'm gonna put the link in the description and also where the law office is. And then if you may be needing any of the services, you reach out and you can get the solution to any of your problems that you are seeking help with in terms of the things that he has mentioned regarding immigration. Well, did you have anything for me, my friend? It's been a great pleasure and it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for thinking of me. I appreciate it. And just to echo what you said, yeah, if you have any immigration questions, reach out to me. To those who are thinking about law school, reach out to me. My email is mo@erwinlawoffice.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help any way I can, walk you through the process, my experiences, give you advice if you feel like you have any specific questions on how to resolve. I only got here because other people helped, so don't be afraid. Reach out. And if Joseph also has my contact information, so if you reach out to him, he can hook you up.
Thank you so much, Mosiah. And
Yes.
to our viewers and listeners out there, we are happy that you could join us, and thank you so much. Bye-bye. All righty, man. Let me pause this. That was good. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I really